So we're going to start with the next series of our Lattice 2023. What is Lattice? A decentralized system where workers are largely self-directed, able to move laterally in an organization and gain knowledge and experience in various roles. This is an apt theme and a name to the prestigious annual business conclave of the MBAEx of IIM Calcutta. This marquee event declares the class of MBAEx to the business world. And what better theme than Innovation Unleashed? To unleash the thinkers of the class of 2024 into the world where innovation takes center stage. With this, I would like to welcome our distinguished guests, our inspiring faculty, and our passionate students to Lattice 2023.
Welcome. Innovation Unleashed. So I'll start with a slightly unpopular opinion. I think considering the usage of the word innovation, we need to put a leash on it a little bit these days. It's overused. I don't know if you would agree with me or not, and that's why we have the panel. We have people from the industry. What do you think about the word? So, as many of you know here that I have a particular interest in etymology. So, the word innovation, where does it come from? Bangla, we have a saying, "Khaye na mathaye de." Sometimes, we encounter something, whether it is a tangible object or a construct or an idea, and we say that, what do you do with it? Do you put it on your head or do you eat it? Innovation is an interesting term, originated somewhere, if I am not mistaken, around the 13th and 14th century, and comes from the Latin origin innovare, which means something new. It has nothing to do with invention. It has nothing to do with creating something new. What it means is that within an existing system, you build something. Not even build, you find new methods of engaging with something that is there. So let's say in terms of technology these days, mobile phones, you slap one more camera on an existing set of 4. Now 5 cameras makes your phones look like biblically accurate angels. And is that innovation? That is the first thought that I would want to put forward to the panel, and we want to have an open discussion on what innovation means today, and do we need to rethink it a bit, maybe leash it in a bit, and focus more on invention, or focus more on doing what we already know to do quite well. So we start with this slightly counterintuitive thing. And I would want to go one by one, whoever wants to start. In your industry, do you feel that this term is being overused? Do you feel that there is a problem? Because if we are talking about academia and industry, do we want to tell our students every day, innovate, 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 and they ultimately don't know how to do the basics? Some things that are the simplest of things to do it correctly. Yes. I think you are smiling and you are up for it, it seems. The others are like...
I was hoping you wouldn't catch the smile.
Please go ahead.
So I didn't want to start because I somehow, we can agree to disagree. I don't think it's an abuse term, but yes, in context, one could feel it is abused. As a common man, as a layman, you keep hearing this, every now and then. Everybody wants to talk about it. It's the in thing, it's the fab. For those who attended Aman's session in the morning, I kind of really liked the way he intertwined innovation on marketing, innovation on sales, innovation on, product, creating new products. So that was a very interesting perspective on innovation. But coming from where I belong, I am a chartered accountant, worked with Ernst Young for the last 2 decades. And honestly, in the last 10 years, we've all pivoted. I was always a core tax technical person, doing finance, looking at laws, interpreting. tax laws, doing case laws, nothing to do with innovation. We were, doing the real, hard work, the toil and the sweat and the blood and that kind of work. But in the last 10 years, lives have changed. We've become technologically enabled, even tax professionals. So every conversation is innovation. Every conversation is about reimagining anything that you're doing currently in a set of fact pattern. Every conversation is about reframing the thoughts. Every conversation is about rethinking how you could do this better. And therefore, I'm far from invention. I think that's a distance away. But innovation clearly is the way to go. That's my take on it.
Lovely. I like the use of rethinking and reframing. Okay. So we had a re-to stuff. We need to do that. Yes, please.
So I think just definition probably doesn't matter as much. What we experience on day-to-day basis. Whether you experience something which is, you can call innovation. I believe that whatever is unconventional, something which is not established practice, where you have a defined path, and you define it for the first time, going from point A to point B, whether it's a business outcome you want to drive, or certain technology you want to develop, and that goes and solves a business problem or a societal problem. In my opinion, that's innovation. And we feel it, I wouldn't say on a day-to-day basis, but there are earlier you would kind of wait for 1 or 2 or 3 years for something new to come up. But at just the pace of investment that is going in, technology breakthroughs, how much time, effort, money is being put around this, you are experiencing something new at much faster pace in every subsequent year. So I believe it's all around us. It's about how you want to view it. We in the industry feel, particularly I come from a consulting industry, so it's about our industry getting disrupted, because innovation has to disrupt something. It is getting disrupted. And our clients who we advise, their businesses are getting disrupted. So we are feeling it all around. And as we talk more, there'll be some examples that I can share.
Consultancy, finance, media.
I basically belong to I would say a blended industry, a part of EdTech and also a part of video technology collaboration. Having spent almost 20-25 years in telecom, and other EdTech organizations also, I feel that innovation always has, been a very, very integral part of our overall business. So I think the terminology might change, but I think the thought process evolution in terms of what the market demands, and as you get into the fitment mode, innovation naturally comes in. In this hyper-competitive market, if you are not innovative and if you don't think out of the box, you cannot survive. So I think in the morning, like what Aman was sharing, that everything lands up into sales, and it is a fact. Whether you are in any section of business or any vertical, finally, for a startup or for a growing organization, the essence is to influence sales and help sales come up. So I think innovation definitely plays an important, very, very important role, and much so in our kind of industry, which is EdTech, hyper competitive, and with a lot of players, global players, national players, and we have to keep up with the competition. And thinking not only innovatively, but also keeping into consideration the psychological statement of the audience that we are approaching, how they are behaving, and also putting some amount of analytics into the entire thing and working around it. So innovation definitely plays an important role. We cannot keep innovation exclusive and grow. It has to be within the system.
It's necessitated. So necessity is the mother
Absolutely.
of innovation.
Absolutely.
And coming to, we have just the opening statements from you, and then, yeah.
So look, I think, so first of all, thank you for inviting me for this panel conversation. So great opportunity to interact with all of you. In my mind, I think the invention and innovation are symbiotic. So I think they both thrive on each other. And I spent the sort of first 7 years of my career sort of in research, essentially research in space systems and so on. And one of the things that I noticed was the gestation time in research, when you think about inventions, tends to be very long. So back in like mid-90s, we were building liquid crystal displays, etc., which then came to the market like 15 years later. So I think innovation is much more about whether it's technology or changing the way something is happening. It's about taking friction out of people's lives and making it easier to and more sort of enjoyable to do business transact, right, in whatever field we are in. Whereas invention is much more sort of fundamental. And in my mind, I think you cannot have enough innovation. There's always room for more. So I would be a little bit on the camp that, let's unleash more innovation as opposed to containing it back. I mean, simple examples like, if you think about, that Paytm, for example, came up with this little speaker, right? You go to a shop, you make a small payment through a QR code, and the small, person who is managing the shop gets a voice confirmation, right? And that makes life so much simpler. So that's innovation.
A lot of people using it,
Yeah.
a lot of shops using it much more. Yeah.
So that's an innovation.
Good example.
The
Yeah.
technology and the underlying sort of inventions are nothing path-breaking, but it's innovation applied in a certain context. So
That's a great example, actually. So I would ask a bit later after your statement, in your specific industries, what do you think are these innovations that have happened so far?
I'll answer that, but
Yeah.
just let me.
Yeah.
You started with the word definition of anything which is new is what is technically called as innovation in the literal sense of the word. For me, I think what drives innovation is change. And change is something which you're not in control of. It's happening. If I have to take my own personal example, I was sitting in a hall like this, which is called L3, and the mechanisms of teaching, the methodology, the stuff that we learned, are all very different. I think typing a project report, because those are the days when Lotus and Word were just in, and we would compete with our batchmates to get that, in our comp lab, those 2 PCs. From that era to today's era, what has changed is the fabric of the society has changed. And as this change has been happening, I think each one of us looks at this change with our own worldview. I mean, you put on a lens depending upon where you're coming from, what your educational background is, and whatnot. I mean, it shaped you in a particular way. For me, then innovation is, and therefore not just the great invention that is happening once in a while, and neither is it very mundane like adding that 4th camera which is giving a certain different functionality, but innovates way in life. So in banking is one of the most traditional businesses that you can ever think of. It's very simple. But if you've seen the change that has happened, right from that of a checkbook to an ATM, I mean, I can even go back to a branch, to an ATM, to a checkbook. Today, I think we have 1,000-odd branches. Nobody walks into a branches, and that's the way it is. And almost 98% of the businesses happen in a very digital way now. Is that innovation? In a way, it is more of an adapting yourself to the constantly evolutionary world that is happening. Some of them homegrown, some of them adapted from the global world. So if you do not innovate, more than abuse, I think if you do not innovate, if you do not make it a part of your DNA, you're going to perish. So your ability to sight those opportunities slightly ahead of somebody else is what I would call innovation. And I would distinctly differentiate it from invention, which is like a 0 to 1 kind of a model, something which did not exist, somebody has brought it in. But I think innovations in your day-to-day life, in organizations like ours, happens with our ability to pick up that particular trend, take advantage of it, re-look at it in a very different way. I mean, I use this terms called 3 R's. When you're running a bank, we talk about 3 R's. The first is run the bank. There are certain, because it's a very regulated entity. You're taking other people's money, depositing it, lending to others, and that's how you make money in the entire process. So the basic run is what you have to do very well. You can't afford to, lose anything. Then there is something called as a continuously renew. Now, whether you will call innovation or not, it depends. Now, what is the renewal? I'm doing a particular process in a particular way, the way I sent out a credit card or the way I sent out a checkbook. How do I reimagine that process to make it much more efficient, whether it is cost effective? That's in a way, it's and some of us will not call it innovation, but if you have to look at the economic value that it adds, that one small step, whether you call it a Six Sigma from the GE world, or it's a huge leap. And that's where the money comes in. And then the third one is ability to reimagine the business. I think what Sanjay is doing is this entire AI world is going to once again knock us out. Well, what is the ChatGPT going to do to us? Now, I might not have invented ChatGPT, but the ability of banks and financial organizations to pick a tool like that and re-innovate and rethink your entire business model is what innovation for all of us. So I wouldn't go with the literal meaning. I don't think it is abused. In fact, it's very, very, we are paying a lot of lip service to it, but not actually getting into the fabric of it and making the best.
Yeah, that's what. And thank you for articulating that so well, because see, we have three terms now. We have rethinking, reimagination, and adaptation rather than innovation. So rather than doing the lip service, as you said, if we can think a little bit about what is it in specific sectors, and just taking the thread from what you said, I would want to come to you and ask you about AI and how you are, what is it in your sector, in your work that you are doing that you feel is like innovating and adapting?
So on this topic, I can go on, right, for an entire day. So, but I'll try to
I'll stop you.
I can, probably try to simplify it for kind of everybody's consumption. So I think we are the AI space by design. It's designed to disrupt things. It's kind of, its definition evolves like every 6 months. What we know of what AI is and what it can do, it changes. And the way, as I was having a discussion with my other co-founders, we're trying to figure out what is happening with this term called Gen AI. Whenever there is like a fundamental breakthrough in terms of driving any kind of productivity, and it is accompanied by experience. So like internet coming in, people could go and search things online. They didn't have to go and do a physical search. Information was coming to your home, to your computer. Then second was like iPhone moment when you could, it's almost like, just a touch experience. And third, what we call the Gen AI moment, where you have this treasure trove of information all around the world, and then you can just get it in the form that you want. And you don't need a technologist to do that. So when that kind of experience changes, accompanied by the significant disruption in productivity, I think that kind of is a moment changer. And we are living that in our industry. As a professional consultant working for G Capital and Genpact, then almost a decade in Accenture, then in IBM, we realized that, I think I mentioned this in my opening remark, that it's like, helping clients take care of disruption in their industry, but also making sure that we are not, we need to be ahead of the curve as far as disruption is concerned. So AI is disrupting our industry in the way you were taking data and modeling for prediction. As in like Madhi's and Praveen's word, which is banking. You were taking historical data to model credit card defaults or loan default and do better collections predictions, so on and so forth. Now that is turned on its head because of how AI is coming in with the contextual information, with non-conventional, unstructured data. I don't know whether I'll call it innovation, invention, but somewhere you kind of living it on a day-to-day basis. And people are kind of, fearful of how the world will look like, right? Whether our jobs as they were defined as our parents, ourselves, whether it's going to be the same in near future or for our kids. And that I would call it, probably it goes beyond definition of invention or innovation. It's just redefining societies. That's kind of my interpretation.
Redefining societies, yes. When it comes to AI, now I would want, because we have all of you representing different aspects of business. When it comes to AI, what you're saying is there is an invention. You gave the example of Apple iPhone. One would want to say that, perhaps Wozniak was the inventor and Jobs was the innovator. To bring something to the world, to show that, hey, this is something new, let's do it, let's apply it, let's use it. We see ChatGPT being something part of Gen AI. And we also know of the debates that are happening with AGI and AI. So the fear and anxiety, I think, is more to do with AGI, artificial general intelligence. How will it change everything? And that anxiety, how do you think that anxiety drives consumer behavior today? And I will come to you first, okay?
No, I specifically wanted to because...
And then I'll come to you.
We have been trying to grapple with Gen AI for the last 1 year.
Yes.
From the time ChatGPT. And my daughter, and I checked with my daughter, she is just passed done a medicine. And I thought Gen AI will play a big role when it comes to analyzing metadata, telling us what kind of patterns are we seeing for heart attack or diabetes or whatever of those sorts. That's where the data collation becomes huge. And for the last, we have been talking to multiple people, saying, what is it going to disrupt? Is it going to disrupt the way my sales guy sells? Is it the way it's going to disrupt the way my direct material, the mail which is coming to you, is it going to be customized enough for Nandita to say, oh no, I know exactly what you do, and therefore instead of a human being coming and drafting a creative element, have I enough data for you to justify a mail, and therefore agencies are going to go out of business, we are going to run things very differently? Or is it the simple issue of we run retrofitted models which enable us to evaluate credit very well, which has already moved into a machine learning model. So we are no more building on sample data, and it's sort of reinforcing itself. And will Gen AI will suddenly bring to me a much huge population with a contextuality driven. We actually don't know. And that's what we're grappling with. Dr. put it very nicely. They are not making money. I mean, for all the hype and the stuff that is, we are still looking for a use case that will justify it. Now, that's the traditional way of doing things.
OpenAI is about to go bankrupt or something?
As long as somebody is funding it, they will continue.
Yeah.
And I think Satya Nadella will find some opportunity to do it. Anyway, I think those are the dynamics of the business world. But it is in this context that, whereas the use cases which you're talking about, can somebody, mimic me, put words into my mouth, and therefore sort of influence society the way Facebook got manipulated by Cambridge Analytica, which is all great science, but there was a human being behind it. Is there a possibility? I think we are getting to the other extreme. I would still say, let that particular technology evolve, develop, let some minor use cases come in, the regulation will follow, the boundary walls will be created, and things will play out. But I think what's more important is, if I have to take the banking example again, on one end of the spectrum, I'll take the cooperative banks, which are still traditional. You go to them, you'll still see checkbooks, you'll still see. On the other hand, go to a bank like a Capital One in the US, which never did banking the way. They came out of data analytics, and they did. Now, how would these banks use these kind of technologies? I mean, on one hand, you have a COP bank which has not even used a data model to run its credit scoring. Forget about Gen AI. On the other hand, you will have the new age banks who are much more closer to interpreting data and playing it very differently. Now, am I innovating? I am adapting? Am I re-engineering? Am I picking those small nuances which will give me a much bigger lift? So I think that's what we have to understand rather than get into...
That fine balance. There is a need to craft a balance, I think, because when we are talking about innovation, sometimes we talk so much about, right now, the buzzword is AI. Right now we are talking about one thing you said, it's so important when it comes to banks operating, smaller banks which still operate on the basis of checkbooks. What can we do in these classrooms? What do you want from the industry to be done in these classrooms so that these kids, I call you kids, yeah, they can go out there and make some difference in those spaces. They don't need ChatGPT, they don't need generative AI to do that. Isn't that also innovation?
Yeah, there is a point that I want to quickly on this to Madhi's point. I think there are a few areas which are, everybody can see that they are ripe for significant difference in productivity. India is a knowledge hub. It's known for its 5 to 10 million technology workers. People say that based on Gen AI, large language models, a lot of coding programming, rote work in coding and programming, I would say rote work across the board is ripe for disruption using large language model and Gen AI. And in fact, most of the technology firms have target of workforce reduction, redeployment based on that. again, it's not going to happen in 6 months, but 2 years, 3 years, 5, nobody can predict the timeline. But Indian economy and Indian workforce will probably feel the most difference compared to any other country, because the way, over the last 20, 30 years, our knowledge economy has come up.
I'll come to that point. I have thought about it, in the second half, that is what the discussion is going to be focused on, rethinking innovation. Yes, you. And
yeah, so, maybe I can just add to the conversation, right? So in my mind, I think a lot of the technological change that we have seen over the years is fundamentally it boils down to Moore's law, right? So every 2.5 years, you have compute which is doubling. If you see at the heart of the AI and why NVIDIA stock is where it is because, fundamentally AI has to be powered by compute and tons of compute. And that will, over time, keep getting more and more affordable. So today's use cases, which might be sounding more difficult to execute, implement, etc., will definitely in time to come will become much more easier, and potentially will happen on your smartphones. So I think the challenge for the folks in the room is that how do you grab the opportunities as they become financially, commercially viable with technology sort of the threshold coming down and down. So if you look at OpenAI today, I mean, they run 300,000 servers. Right? The cost of running that OpenAI platform is so substantial, but you can see that in a couple of years' time, banks, and right now, you look at big banks like most of our peers, they are banning the use of ChatGPT, because as soon as you put something on ChatGPT, the data is out of your perimeter, right? So you don't want to put that client confidential data and expose that to external servers. But in time to come, you will have certainly technology getting internalized, compute getting cheaper and more easily accessible, and therefore some of these technologies will get internalized. And we are already seeing a lot of AI, ML use cases in areas whether it's hyper-personalization or productivity enhancement, credit decisioning, or fraud detection. So many of these are starting to use AI more in an assisted capacity. But I can see that in time to come, our relationship managers are likely to use a ChatGPT sort of large language models to help them with a much more informed view of the customer that they are trying to serve.
Absolutely, yeah, because when we are talking about these use cases, you brought up fraud detection, etc. You mentioned Cambridge Analytica. Before I get to the next, I think all of you have an inkling where I'm going to go, but I'll just ask Mr. Pattanayak about, because one, you see these use cases happening in finance industry, in consultancy. What is your take on this in media?
I mean, while we are discussing today, at this noble opportunity, let me share that we already have a plan of organized training for all our senior executives, which is happening on 26th at Bombay. And the objective is to help use the AI tools in bettering our solutions in whatever we can. Possibly they cannot replace us, but I think pulling out relevant information and then using that relevant data and then putting your human mind into it to see a logical, because even for AI there will be restrictions, there will be limitations. It will not think as humans would think. There will be certain amount of limitations. There will be certain areas wherein you need to look at your own data and align the AI requirement tools accordingly. So what I feel is that tools like ChatGPT definitely is going to become an integral part of our lives as we go forward. But I think this is just a beginning. There will be a lot of happenings going to come up in this business. In our kind of business, as you said, education or media, or I would say, we are into video conferencing. So if I have to start from the initial days while we started, 2014 we started, and that time, as a startup, before that we were working at Reliance Communications, delivering video collaboration also that time as well. But I think with the intent that video collaboration would still remain as one of the not very easily accessible elements. But until COVID came in, and Zoom washed away the entire scenario, and it was a huge transition for us to cope up with. But I think we did our kind of pivot. We found out solutions. We reached out to consumers wherein they needed solutions. For instance, we are with Mahindra and Mahindra, managing their entire ecosystem of video conferencing, because they had hundreds of video conferencing rooms lying idle because they were not knowing how to operate. So, this happens in major banks. In HDFC it has happened. So we are going there, assisting them, taking a turnkey project with them, and trying to work it out. So I think these were the activities that we were heavily doing, the e-AGMs, which were happening during COVID. The e-AGMs were happening rampantly, and we were executing all of them together with managing capabilities. So I think pivoting into new things while you're in crisis and getting into new models, and again the innovation part also comes in here, that what you think out of the box actually works out. As as that has happened with boat also, that they had positioned themselves well in the market in a best fitment place with the right price, the right mind intellect. So every person had the would have the aspiration of owning a Bose, but why not a boat? So there's a huge transition in terms of quality. But yes, there is a segment audience. Even for us in executive education also, we have a program which is running at 15 lakhs from IIM Ahmedabad or from IIM Calcutta, and yet we have a program which we pitch at about 2.5, 3 lakhs. Both have their own positions, and they're selling at their own segments. Of course, a Porsche or a Maruti sells at its own pace. So,
yes, absolutely. I was going to go to you.
On ChatGPT, I've got, I've used it myself so I can speak. And I can't agree more with Praveen. It's all about computing. And my personal belief, the human brain is the best computer, and nobody can dispute that. And nothing can replace the human brain. Even ChatGPT cannot. The best answers are given by the human brain. The ChatGPT can only give a very, very generic answer. I'm a hardcore tax professional. I practice litigation, and every time I've encountered a unique situation, I was like, okay, let me see what ChatGPT is going to give me. It gives me trash. It really gives me trash. It's garbage and garbage, or perhaps. So, guys, don't get carried away with ChatGPT.
Just tell them, don't use ChatGPT in your examinations.
It's not relevant at all.
It's absolute.
Nothing can replace a human brain, and this is the best computer that we've got.
Or don't.
But the only word of caution is, again, I heard about change. Change is really, it's around us. It's in everything that we do, see. The best way to innovate is to self-cannibalize, destroy, self-destruct, and reconstruct, because if you don't cannibalize your way of working, somebody else will. If you don't reinvent your business, somebody else will take it away from you, and start from there.
Can I speak a little bit
Yes,
contrarian view?
please. That's all I want. Yeah.
So it's, again, in one of the conversations, I don't remember exactly when, but maybe a few weeks back, I was talking to somebody who is a board member now at one of the regional banks in US, was ex-Accenture colleague. And they're saying when internet came in, we were in college, so we were like all kind of new. We were not in business, so we didn't know, we didn't interact with internet when it was kind of bursting on the scene. But that gentleman was telling us that businesses there, some of them said it's kind of, I don't think value in internet because it's very hard to understand, requires computer is difficult to maintain, so on and so forth. Some people say it's a very good publishing location. I have my annual results, I have my business numbers, or there is information that I need to share. That's a public publication. Basically, you go and publish whatever you develop. And then there's third category, which is, which probably they were gleaning in 10 years ahead of time, saying that this can actually potentially change in the way business is done, the way humans are going to use it, so on and so forth. And that number was small, maybe very, very small. Who knows, maybe it might be Jeff Bezos or whosoever, right? Or Bill Gates. Bill Gates was probably pioneering the internet and computers. So we believe, again, the time will tell, that Gen AI or AI probably is in the same category. The reason being that when AI was kind of a difficult thing for everybody to experience till a couple of years back. Now everybody is talking about AI because everybody can experience it in some shape and form.
Absolutely,
ChatGPT, just
yeah.
one example. And when things become that commonplace, then you know that there's something is around the corner.
Exactly.
And
It's
then,
like a wobbly baby now. It will learn to walk and ultimately come in slides.
Whether it learns to walk or not, you will know how to walk along with it and make the
Yes.
best use of it.
Exactly. Hold
So that's
hands
the
and go.
contextuality that we need to build. But I'll just pick up on that
Yes,
bit. You said,
yes.
what is the expectation out of the people who pass
Yes,
out?
that's
If I were to
that's
pass out
yeah,
today,
yeah.
then I would look at innovation in a very different way. ChatGPT is one such stimuli in the environment. If you have to look at the India context, one of the biggest things that has happened is, I'm sure you guys would have heard of this concept of DPI, the digital public infrastructure, which is effectively nothing but a combination of Aadhaar, mobility, now the account aggregator which is in place. And this, for me, is a fantastic bedrock for innovation which is relevant to India. If there is anything which needs to be taught in the campuses, it is the ability of people who are passing out to understand the implication of this triology. I call it the data triology, data on one side, technology on the other, and journeys. Journeys is a behavior. How do we behave? I mean, we used to behave in a particular way of withdrawing money from an ATM. I'm just giving banking as an example. Today, I decide to scan and pay. How do I build those journeys? The tech is moving away from my data center into a cloud, and hopefully the DPDP Act will effectively make it even much more regulated and stronger. So that's there. And the third is this bit of data, because everything, whatever you do, up until I'm meeting Sanjay face-to-face, which is not getting recorded, but everything is creating a digital exhaust, whether it be in bits and bytes, whether it be in images. And I think this is where tools like a ChatGPT or the other one called, if I'm not mistaken, Midjourney, Bard, I mean, each one of them will find their unique niches. And do we have the skill sets within us? Do campuses today teach us the ability to string these things together and bring the output? Or would, organizations, when they recruit you, will they have to take you through that 1-year journey, bring you up to speed, and before you become productive? I think that's the big takeaway that we need to have from students of today.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. And I want to add to that, right, in terms of the kind of skills that, we need to sort of pick up. I think that there's a lot of emphasis on the left brain sort of functional skills, whether it's ChatGPT or understanding AI, etc. Right? But when you look at the biggest banking failure of the year started with the Silicon Valley Bank, and actually what triggered that was actually not so much technology certainly played a part, but it's the societal changes that technology brought in. The fact that it was banking to a very few startups, $209 billion and 80% of that money sitting in bonds, and with a very few startups, but with very, very large investments in that bank. And as the word went around that this bank is likely to fail through social media, and the role that social media played, within 24 hours, there was a flight of money where so much money moved out that it collapsed. So I think that understanding the implications of societal change on business models, I think is important as well, in addition to understanding the underlying technology that's changing.
I do agree with you. I think that on one hand, we have this thing like, yes, things are moving very fast. We all know the Silicon Valley motto, move fast and destroy things. I mean, destroy all you want. But the thing is that even as we, like you have very rightly pointed out, India is moving towards more and more of a data-based system. Even though I might not want to, I have to link my PAN with my Aadhaar. I have a lot to say about that, not going there. But at one point, you see, I like, when I was talking initially about the balance, what you said, yes, there's data, but we also have to be perhaps slightly a little bit more careful about how we use what we use.
I have a bit of a different view there. If I were in US, I would encourage this discussion. Privacy is important. I'm not saying it's not important. But imagine this issue of not wanting to link an Aadhaar with the PAN. I'm not a propaganda here, but I'm basically, it is a 2% of our citizens' population.
Absolutely, correct.
You have a remaining 98% who, because of your jam trinity, have dramatically benefited because of this public infrastructure. My ability to get remittance right to the door, my ability to have the DBT being passed on, my ability to break down into smaller loans. I think that's what India needs. India doesn't need a ChatGPT today to change my fortunes. What it requires is a collective methodology, new business models, which will help us to make what Yunus Khan did in Bangladesh, Yunus Mohammed did in Bangladesh, in India in a much larger scale. And we need people who understand those operating risks. So in my mind, I think we have got a fantastic regulator in RBI. And SEBI is also coming through. Their ability to go 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. It irritates a lot of us.
I think that is necessary.
It's very important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It is the most.
I think that's where I think the balance is very
the balance,
well established.
that's what I'm talking about, with especially young people who are going to enter the industry. That balance is something that we perhaps need to.
And I think we have damn good regulators who are making that a possibility.
Yeah, because we also, right, you know, and SEBI has stepped in, you know, with Adani, etc., you know, things that have happened. So balance, the fine balance. Now, I think it's time that we open the panel to questions. Is it? I'm looking to our, the real moderators are here. You should understand that. I'm quite, yes. So the panel is open to questions.
Hi, sir. You mentioned in the conversation just now about Mohammed Yunus and his initiative of micro-lending per se. That is my idea of it. And you mentioned something about how India needs to do something in this space. But isn't micro-lending already prevalent in India? Like, I just wanted to get some more clarity on what is it that what he did in Bangladesh is where we are lacking in India with regards to that.
It is very much prevalent. But it is done in a very physical way. I don't know how many of you have heard this concept called business correspondent, which was an entity created by, authorized by RBI, wherein a non-employee of the banking industry can actually do certain banking activities. So you typically use the BC to do that micro-level collection, micro-level lending, doing those meetings on a weekly basis. It's a very physical model. Now think of that, it's pretty popular, but even now, today, like in our bank, roughly around 10% of my total book, the book size is a lending book, is microfinance. And it behaves very well. It has its hiccups once in a while. Whenever there is when COVID happened, we went through a big crisis. Whenever there is a political upheaval in any state, you will go through a crisis. Because these are not credit-related reasons, but more political and environmental reasons. But coming apart, how will I reimagine? What Mohammed Yunus did was, in a smaller country, built a culture, sort of made a promise that credit is not based on capability and intent, much more intent rather than capability. As long as a person has got cash flows, he will be able to pay it up. I don't think we have exploited it fully. Now imagine if tech can be layered on top of it, and you have the ability to make that same model multiply 300 times. And when I say tech, I don't mean a physical technology of a mobile alone, but a combination of data, combination of models, ability to empower the BCs with tools which make them accountable. I mean, frauds are more than credit risk. Usually in these kind of markets, you run with fraud risk. People running away with money, reputation risk becoming a bigger issue. So how do you manage that so potential is not even, I mean, we are not even scratched the surface of that world. It's waiting to happen in a much bigger way. And that's what will take our, GDP, sustainable revenues much bigger.
So is it the tech based on, trying to figure out the intent factor, technology being used to figure out the intent factor, which is what is different in Bangladesh, say, versus in India?
No, in Bangladesh, it was a leap of faith. Now convert that leap of faith with new technologies like contextuality, huge amounts of data which can be analyzed, building patterns, where when I run a scorecard, I run a good to bad odds. What is the probability that Madhi will default? Is it 9:2? You can never be sure whether I will default or not. So you give odds. So how do I find this model becoming much more stronger with a much larger database? Now, maybe a ChatGPT will help me make it better. Not ChatGPT, not the large language models, but the various other technologies which are coming behind it. Your ability to pick those nuances and scale it up is what will make a difference. Not doing the same thing again. Yeah, doing the same thing again and again in a more efficient way will take you from A to B, but will not take you from A to Z. That's the...
I'll just probably add to a very specific point you mentioned right on this. So credit scoring, right, which he was referring to, is based on your credit payment, your loan payment behavior. Now imagine 60% people have never taken loans, so there is no record. One aspect was everybody in India has a mobile phone, and they have a mobile phone, the bill payment history. That is a proxy for your intent to pay. use that data along with the credit data, and all of a sudden you amplify the coverage from 40% to 80, 90%. And you start reaching out and giving loans, even micro loans, to these people in a very authentic manner, with certain confidence if you run your book that you're not going to go bust if you go expand from 40 to 80%. Probably that is what is, this is just one such example. Of course, there are many other examples of how you can leverage data and other technologies to do the societal good, in this case, expansion of credit.
When we see industries, across the industries, we see different paces of innovation, right? On one end, if we see technology or computing, we see such a high pace of innovation, so much so that we synonymize words like technology and innovation with these fields, right? And on the other hand, what I see is fields like construction and such has a completely different pace of innovation, right? I would say a slower rate of innovation. So what are the fundamental underlying factors that propels these different rates of innovation in these industries?
So if I were to oversimplify that question, I think the driver for innovation is problem solving. So depending on where the problem is and who wants to address the problem. So in your example, if construction industry does not have an overarching problem which requires a quick redressal, then innovation takes a backseat. For them, it's more physical labor, material, man and material, those kind of safety, of course, is a pressing, area of pain. But, minus safety, I think the rest is, autopilot. The rest of the industries where there are pain issues in terms of cost, in terms of delivering more with less, I think that is where innovation comes in. So necessity clearly, as the core of innovation, and therefore you see the speed of innovation high in some areas in comparison to the others.
I think the other sort of dimension I'll add to that is the regulatory dimension, right? So our industry, banking, is bits and bytes basically. So it should actually have a very fast pace of innovation. Yet the big banks have the comfort of the regulator, and hence they get dragged to sort of change more because the customer expectations are changing, fintechs are nibbling at their heels, and so on. Right? Left to themselves, they'll basically be dinosaurs. So I think that's the,
Yeah, but Praveen, but the dinosaurs make a lot of money. Huh? Imagine if a JP Morgan is told that fintechs do not have any right to come and nibble it through regulation. They'll make money hand over fist. But this balance, I think like we were talking about, how do you allow a disruption to happen? And how do you ensure that the basics is also retained? Because at the end of the day, I'm borrowing money from my public depositors. But to answer your question, I'll give you a story. Mr. Kamath used to be a chairman when I was in ICICI. And he had retired as a chairman, and he had become the CEO of the BRICS Bank in China. So he was based in Shanghai. And he used to come once in a while back to ICICI, and we used to sit in a dining room and chat about, we should tell us stories. And in BKC, our office is based at BKC, the Geo Center, how many of you are from Bombay here? Yeah, so you've seen the Geo Center now? It's like one of the mega buildings. It had not happened, it was just a deep pit. And it was not sort of coming up for quite some time. And he used to compare the development that was happening outside his office in China with the development that was happening in BKC. Today, BKC is a concrete jungle. He says in a flat 1 month, they would come out with 4 floors. It's not that they had lots of labor or etc. The kind of technology that they used to talk about, it was like almost like saying a few, maybe 50 odd people would be able to build a peripheral of the structure with the pillar coming in the center and then everything else getting built around it, glass structures. India, you come to BKC today, you will see that happening. Now, this kind of an innovation, when it is a brick and mortar kind of a business, I'm using the word literally here, innovation when it happens gives you a fantastic entry barriers. I mean, whoever has developed the technology stands to, milk it out beautifully. But when it comes to process industries like us, like banking, where you're not actually building anything very unique, you're just playing around with the process, playing around with the way, tech plays a very important role. And if you do not innovate, we'll perish. Health comes in somewhere in between. All our doctors are still the traditional doctors. But with things changing dramatically, whether it be the video, think of VC being used for telemedicine. Now, telemedicine gets replaced with video medicine, and those patterns are picked up, and some chat GPT model equivalent is building it in a different way. I think that is where this hybrid model, where there is a phygital world of a patient coming and meeting a doctor, but huge data getting created, marries each other, and the world will change. So it's different strokes for different people. I think our ability to analyze what and build it is a big story waiting to happen.
So my question is primarily related to that how the innovations are reducing the friction in the market essentially. So your ability to go into the rural markets or maybe to transact very costlessly, all these things are basically reducing your frictions. And it is increasing the capacity to basically raise the deposits as well as giving the loans on the asset side. But what I wonder is that, and what SBV crisis also highlighted, that that when there's a pressure at the time, at tough times from the liability side as well, because of a deposit withdrawal, and at the asset side as well, because of the large increase in the increase for the loans and the credit lines due to the tightening policy, then how do the banks basically manage their maturity mismatch and the duration that they are basically are specialized to manage these things? Because bank is essentially the entity which manages risk. But if I am feeling the hardship from both sides of the balance sheet, how do I manage that, right? And the second question is essentially related to that how the recent the tightening policies and how these are essentially changing the landscape of the banks, primarily related to the fintechs and the shadow banks. And in US, if you find that the 50% of the market is basically taken by the shadow banks. The big commercial banks only hold around 40 to 50%. So you can imagine the vulnerability that the fintechs and the shadow banks are basically supplying into the market to basically hit the financial stability at the tough times. And you can basically witness in the terms of regional banks in the US who are feeling this worth at the particular time.
You're absolutely right that pace of innovation, pace of change is increasing, and hence there is potentially, our ability to manage risk needs to improve. At the end of the day, we are managing risk. And the answer, if I were to take an analogy, it's like we have a highway and, we are the answer of sort of desire to drive faster and faster, just having the safety in our mind that we have stronger and stronger brakes is not the right answer. Potentially one day you are open to a crash. You got to be driving carefully within the speed limits, and you've got to be thinking about, therefore, risk and better risk management systems and so on, which help you drive in a controlled way. And therefore, I think, to the level of data analytics and the thought that goes in with the big banks to adopt new technologies is, obviously fintechs come up because their entry barrier is much lower and they can actually experiment and do new things, whereas or large banks got to think about, what the potential consequences and downside risks of some technologies are. Big banks typically will have, there's lots of legacy infrastructure, there's lots of confidential data, there's a regulator that we need to, satisfy. All of those considerations need to go in before we adopt and sort of increase the pace of adoption of technology. Certainly the desire is there, but you've got to be much more thoughtful about it and sort of take cautious steps in terms of how you unleash that technology within our internal ecosystem.
What you first asked was the ALM mismatch. That's what banks are supposed to do. If the idiots can't do that well, then they don't need to survive as a bank. Silicon Valley Bank, like Praveen pointed out, they had too much of a concentration risk with one segment, which was very savvy and was influenced by a bunch of VCs. It was not a branch, it was not a bank which had sort of spread out its depositor base, number one. Today, we conduct an ALM meeting once a month. In tomorrow's world, if my data starts getting flown to the regulator, as well as the regulator gives us the industry view, and I know exactly what my mismatch is. Our ability to manage the asset liability mismatch is much better. Because I'll be able to, in fact, during COVID, each of the banks used to report our daily deposits and assets on a daily basis every day before 4 o'clock. And the governor himself would be tracking it, and any kind of a pattern mismatch, a call will come to the MD CEO. That's the way it was managed. So I think if somebody can't manage their ALM, we are in a mess. So they should know which side of the, in fact, that's the most laziest banking. If you don't do anything else, you know exactly how to borrow the money at a 3.5% or 4% interest rate and give it to the right people at the decent spread and manage this mismatch with your CRR, SLR, you're good enough. So you don't need any technology, you just need a lot of diligence. On the other side, the shadow banking story, actually that's where the regulator plays a very important role. Today, I mean, you guys would have read about Cred not getting a license for an NBFC 2 days back. Why? Because when I'm sitting outside, like Praveen said, the onus of becoming a bank, having a license, is so huge that you better follow all those rules and yet innovate in that process. Find out ways of doing things better. Today, the more I do mobile banking, the biggest headache is not credit risk, it is cyber risk. Am I able to, which IP gets stolen? How does people massacred and kill me? Those are the kind of stuff. And the regulator has to look at everything because you don't know which side of the attack is coming from. So shadow banking is something which the regulator detests and it will keep coming down. Either you give them a license. The best way to kill such fintechs is to give them the license. Say, come, play the game. There will be a level playing field which will play out very differently. So I think that's how the game will start playing out.
Sir, I come from education and two words that you used, hybrid and phygital, they sort of touched a nerve. So, sir, the thing is that as a part of innovating in education, there's this edtech industry that sort of, grew pretty rapidly in India. And the thing is that the delivery problem still remained in the sense that a lot of data got generated, a lot of people got connected, a lot of those things happened, valuations skyrocketed. But then, and as a part of one of the largest edtechs in India, what happened is that they sort of also ended up becoming NBFCs and creating a lot of pathways for NBFCs to lend. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That was world-class innovation. And it created a gigantic and a very successful kind of a startup. Just to add a few more points, when I was giving interviews last year in Ahmedabad and Bangalore before I was selected in Calcutta. So prof after prof told me that it is going to crash and burn. It is going to crash and burn. And they were pretty vehemently, they were very strong. I was not able to understand it back then. I was naive enough to defend it. Now I know better because I've been reading a lot about it. But I feel that a lot of delivery problems don't get solved by these innovations. Like for instance, telehealth or tele-education. Are we papering over the cracks that are there in the system? Or are we actually going to be able to solve problems with all of these steps? That's something that I keep wondering and just like to hear something about that.
There is no right or wrong answer. I think you hit it on the nail when you said digital. For every Baiju which is facing a problem, not because of his ability to deliver, but because of his over leverage, going and acquiring companies, just playing the world of valuation, that's one side of the story. But there is a Khan Academy, which is still a Section 24 equivalent, which doesn't make profits, but is consistently able to give you decent quality, maybe not the highest end of the education spectrum, but somebody can still rely on. If I need to find out something, I can always go to, which is all community driven. So, but when it comes to learning in fact, we were discussing just before the meeting, there are some meetings I love to do on Teams and Zoom, but there are a few meetings where I would require these 10 people sitting together, thrashing each other, arriving. I think education is something similar. Exactly. What is the end purpose? What is the end objective? What do you want to do? Am I building a small skill which will help me to do my job slightly better? I think our Coursera's of the world will do a fantastic job. But if I'm going to get into medicine, I want to prepare for NEET PG, I might still crack an entrance examination. But I want to get the nuances of the actual studies. I think the physical interface helps. So we'll have to differentiate. Where is it that the physical world plays an important role? Which are the areas where digital, you can never, put a Chinese wall between them and say, this is fantastic. There is always a degree of separation which you'll have to maintain. That's the way, and this will keep happening.
To add to that, to your very interesting question and what you said about the interviews, I think all of us in the room, I think we need to call out if a company is exploitative, call it out as exploitative instead of saying that it is innovating.
I'm coming from a perspective where we are as a society acknowledging the need to change the ways we do business, whether it's with regards to sustainability or rather social issues and so on and so forth. Having said that, whatever little I've been able to understand about this whole AI, machine learning, the analytics based, how data helps us make things better and so on and so forth, the idea of data is what has accumulated so far. And if we look at the decisions, the habits, the practices, these are all data which pertain to behaviors which have caused the problems we are facing today. Whether it is decision-making metrics or, and what I mean by it, I'll just give you a small illustration, maybe I'm completely off base. Somebody apparently used ChatGPT and they were talking about a nurse, and I think some of you know what I'm referring to. The doctor is a male and the nurse is a female, because that's the data that is available out there. So you are reproducing the problems that we have. What can tech do to make sure that we don't reproduce but recreate new worlds?
I'll take a quick shot at that. So I think Microsoft has come out with this concept of co-pilot, which is that you're not just letting planes fly on their own. I mean, some people want to do that, and that's at their own risk. Idea is to use these technologies to your advantage and purpose fit it to your needs. For your education and teaching needs, you were doing hundreds of different things and it was very labor intensive. Now you have a smart way to summarize and get all that information. But idea is not to go ahead and just say a blanket replacement of just going by whatever computer produces. So it's not kind of either or. At some point of time, if it is sophisticated enough, where it starts giving indisputable results, then why not? But not at this time.
But I think, to rephrase Professor Nimruji's question, she's talking about algorithmic bias. And when algorithmic bias, for example, there's a large language model, and a large language model collects, gives responses based on the extent data that is there. So what is it that can be done perhaps to negotiate algorithmic bias? Because we all know, Amazon's case and multiple companies where biases that are extant are being perpetuated rather than being thought about. So is there something that is being done in this space?
In terms of technology and AI, is that they're talking about hallucination and they're talking about bias, as you're mentioning. And there are different ways to deal with it. And the problem of historical data being used for decisioning is reinforcing the past. Idea is that you be mindful of that. And there are ways to,
sorry to cut you, but in fact the problem is one of the sectors is finance. Because if we are looking at credit, if we look historically at credit data, let's say in the US, there will be or there is an extent bias against black people. You assume, and your algorithms assume, that black people will not return money. And thereby, that bias being perpetuated sort of takes us back rather than getting...
Yeah, no, I think, I think any technology essentially amplifies the biases or, the whatever you're trying to do, right? It makes it bigger, faster. So I think that's where you started, and Naveen mentioned as well, that's where the role of human intelligence comes in. So it's a bit like you have so many examples of in Google Maps, people going down the lanes where then getting stuck in because it's too narrow a lane, right? And just using your judgment when you can see that it's not something you can navigate,
yes,
stopping there
and
not going forward. So I think we should be happy that there's actually a role for us. Because
there definitely is, and that's why I think we are, you said earlier in response to, I think, his question that leash it a bit. That's what I think we are. Are there any questions, or I think we'll take one more question. Moderators, where are you? One more, yeah.
Check.
Last question, okay.
One question, sir. We are told about the innovations, lot of innovations. Coming into the ChatGPT, ML, AI, whatever, you are playing with the data. and all the data which you are collecting on the basis of what you've been fed it with or the human has fed it. As subsequently, as the data increases, the chances of data infection is very high. Like an innovation world is one world, and other world we know dark world, dark web we called it. So what all the possibilities you are looking forward for protection of the data? Because if your data is not protected, the AI ML is going to fail drastically. And there will have, even public privacy will go to hell, which is your DPDP, GDPR and federal laws are very strict on that. Where do you then stand for protection of privacy law?
Do I have a choice? If that DPDP, if I violate, I have to pay 250 crores. No need for any. So first and foremost, I think both for the previous question as well as this one, ability to build in ethical railroads, whether it is explainability of the model from a bias perspective. Even when we did scorecards, Sanjay and me, we go back a long time. If you're not able to explain the biases, am I treating a particular community, I'm treating a particular strata of the society differently, would depend on the population that comes through the gate on the basis of which I built the model. The classical old, we take an observation sample over an 18-month period, take all the data, see how they behaved, feed it into a model. So what my credit underwriter did manually is going to get amplified and replicated through a data. No data model survives for a long time. It keeps deteriorating over a period of time. That itself is a science by itself. So your ability to see when is it deteriorating, what are the biases it's throwing up, is it going in a direction which I had not intended for? Usually banks have 200, 300 member teams just doing this. Mostly from ISI Calcutta, Delhi school. I still hope IMC will give a lot more people, but it's not happened till now. So I think that kind of a model will continue. Similarly, the data privacy norms are regulations, but what goes underneath is a huge technological edifice. It's not as easy to take a data and put it in. To create a data warehouse or a data lake takes a lot of money, and it's not just the efficiency with which you're delivering it. You're delivering it for the granularity of the data, the cleanliness of the data, because if you're putting in garbage, customer will go and file a case against me, or my data will get leaked, or it will get misused, but the onus lies with the management. So if you're not able to put all these guardrails around you, and it's no more only RBI for a bank, there is TRI, there is, how many of you keep getting calls saying personal loan, le lo, credit card, le lo? I mean, in a way, that's not something, we have not leaked the data, but this entire ecosystem, when you want to go and take a loyalty out of a let's say a Mark and Spencer, you still have to give your phone number, and that's how this entire story starts. Now, hopefully, hyper-personalization will make it very specific. So as the rules become tighter and tighter, they'll become much more impactful, and organizations will have to build designs, which is again tech. So the same tech which can help you get into a mess can hopefully help you solve some of the problems that it creates. So that's how it will play out. So it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. There is no golden, magic wand which will solve all the problems immediately. And don't forget that India is a big country. We are just talking about the top 4 or 5%. All of us belong to that very elitist group. There is a huge population waiting there which needs to be brought up, and we cannot kill the, the golden goose. Tech is that golden goose. You have to use it properly to make things in a sustainable manner.
All right, so interesting discussion so far. Yeah, I'm not taking any more questions. We'll come back. Let's take a break and have a cup of coffee, maybe think about some of these ideas that we are discussing. And then once we come back, we sort of take off from here, because one of the things that we have been, in this 1 hour, we are constantly, I think thematically what keeps coming back is the need to understand a balance, the need to leash a bit, unleash a bit, innovate, and at the same time, take a couple of steps backwards, think. I think more than rethink, we are occurring, we are coming again at let's just stop, let's think a bit before we call something that, let's only go and blindly innovate. However, the second part, as we had thought of talking about it, we are now going to talk about the rethinking. Now we understand in some ways we were very critical in the last hour or so. We were trying to critically look at what innovation is, what it means, primarily focusing on finance and tech. Let's try to look at other spaces as well in the next half and try and see what are the ways, what are the barriers to innovation. What are the things which are actually obstructing innovation? We were talking so sincerely about regulation. Some people think that regulations are obstructive. Are they? These are some questions that we are going to look at, think about, and hopefully disagree about a lot after the high tea. All right, welcome back. Hope all of you are awake after a cup of coffee. And we'll try to keep you awake for the next 1 hour or so. We have a hard stop, as told by the real moderators, at 4:45. Okay? So I was thinking of, kind of upping the ante a bit. We have so far spoken about certain critiques of innovation, thinking about regulations, etc. I want to start the second half with some comments about legal systems. Because currently, as we are, the state, we are also looking at a lot of changes, proposed changes in laws around us, in our country. I would invite the panelists to discuss what about these changes and think of the differences in changes and innovation. Because if something is called, if something is changing drastically, would you still call it an innovation? And thinking of our legal systems, the Indian legal systems currently, the proposed changes that we see, because before we went for a break, we were talking about rethinking, and we were also talking about how do we get over barriers to innovation. So when these students, they enter the industry, what are the things that they should do, etc. What are the systems that we are creating as a country, as a people, for these new entrants into the industry? And I would want your specific opinion about possibilities of legal changes, and we start from there. We'll start from there.
Sure, it's a it's a very long question, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. And I must disclaim, I'm a chartered accountant and a lawyer, but I'm more a chartered accountant and less a lawyer. So with that disclaimer, I will tell you what I have to tell you. So there is, the landscape on the legal side is changing. It's changing rapidly. It's changing every day. The current dispensation, is doing everything to kind of bring laws on data privacy, on respecting data, on using data. So there is so much that is happening, and we are seeing a lot of changes on every civil laws, criminal laws, especially with respect to data privacy, data transformation. When you come specifically to what is the government doing, now I will just take an example, maybe two examples. One, that applies to me as a professional in Ernst Young, and two, which is what the government is doing in terms of data. So as professionals in Ernst Young, we are all regulated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants, and then the SEBI, and then the SEC, because we deal with financial statements. We have a lot of confidential information relating to our clients, and therefore, as partners, we are not allowed to invest in securities of our audit clients, and therefore there is a lot of disclosure requirements. There is a lot of limitation in terms of what kind of stocks we can buy. And therefore there is always this threat of did I cross a line? Did I buy something which I was not supposed to buy? We're a huge organization, 300,000 plus people across the globe, and as many clients, as many engagements. So there is really no way you could be assured that you're 100% compliant. But the law hasn't changed. The law has only become tighter. You have no choice but to comply. What are we? How is technology helping us comply? How is innovation helping us? Not cross the line. There are ways and methods and means by which companies are coming together, CDCL, NSDL, CAMS, the kind of, providing data feeds, to, big four firms, giving them access to all their employee data. At the same time, making sure that there is real-time exchange of information so that you don't cross a deadline and therefore you don't become non-compliant, which could potentially lead you to penalties and all kinds of regulatory action. But at the same time, all of that data is very personal to me. It's private data, and therefore my consent is needed. In the legal framework, whatever I purchase, whatever my spouse purchases or my spouse equivalent purchases, or my dependent children, they invest in something, all of that needs to go in, and now they are not employees of Ernst Young. They still have to comply because of a regulation that's imposed upon the firm. But how do you kind of then interplay with data privacy that is applicable to non-employees, data privacy that is applicable to the employee, and at the same time remain compliant is a complex web for which companies are coming together and making solutions. So the legal system will only make it more tighter. It is not going to get relaxed because somebody is not able to comply, and the penalties of not being able to do it are really, really high. So clearly, data and data mining and data usage is the order of the day. Legal systems will only make it more stringent and more actionable. The other example, which I don't know if we are very familiar with how tax administration is changing in this country. The one big change which has happened, and I think, and I'm proud to say, as an Indian, we are way ahead of the game for digitizing tax administration through transformation and the data that is being gathered by all possible sources. Again, we heard, the MapMyIndia guy in the morning, Rohan Verma. He was talking about, location being embedded in 80% of the transactions that are happening today, and a geo-tagging is happening. So what kind of locations, where are the transactions happening, where are the shell companies, what is the possible tax evasion, all of that is being used as data points to frame laws which did not exist. So we are creating newer laws, we are creating newer challenges for tax professionals and taxpayers to overcome and at the same time meet the regulatory requirement. The government is investing heavily in a project called Project Insights. And that project is about gathering data from all possible sources. As corporates, we have income tax registrations, we have GST registrations, we have exchange control registrations, we have all kinds of other sundry filings. All of these needs to talk to each other. The framework is where these regulators are exchanging information. All of that is being used to detect on a real-time basis information that is relevant for the government to make laws. Information that will make the government ask you pointed questions. These are no longer vague general checklists where you will be asked 10 questions and the same 10 questions are being asked to 1,000 different people. You will get your own checklist, you will get your own questionnaires, and you have to be ready. The third advantage is institutionalizing memory. What happened today in the paper world will be lost in 10 years from now, and therefore there is no trail. Or the government is like, jo kagaz pe nahi hai, wo hai hi nahi. Without paper, there is no value. All of this is getting institutionalized with the way government and the legal systems are adopting and adapting to technology. So clearly, I think we are on the right path. But are we there? We are far from being there. We have not arrived, but we're clearly on the right trajectory.
Wonderful. You used something. You used the word consent when it comes to data privacy. I want to ask, and this question is open to the entire panel. How much of it is informed consent? Is the industry or the government thinking about informed consent rather than consent?
Today there is none.
None.
I mean, No, don't. I'm a hardcore credit card guy at heart. I built my career on credit cards. Don't put it that way. So I'll give you an analogy. When we heard Naveen talk about the very conceptual arguments. As a layman, I look at it as the law evolves based on society. The most basic thing that I can do is I can steal from somebody. There is a law, there is a criminal procedure code. As we became a greater society, corporates started defrauding. I mean, we have heard multiple cases. So the corporate law became a big story. In today's world, digital, which you're bringing the consent layer, digital, which was seen as a normal way of doing things. I used the word digital exhaust previously. This triumvirate of technology, whether it's a mobile, whether it's a cloud, whether it's a server, or the combination of the data that it gets created when I make a telephone call, I'm creating a log, which if I'm not supposed to call you, then I'm supposed to be penalized by try, so et cetera, et cetera. And there is a behavior, human beings' behavior. In each of these journeys, sometimes law is ahead of you, and in some cases, law follows you. I mean, that's the name of the game. As we speak, the regulator recognized the fact that information, especially private information, is a big asset for that human being. Because unlike your income, salaries, etc., the way I behave in the digital world is becoming an asset. You know, I'm using data, my own private data. Where did I study? How much do I earn? What loan I have got? Have I repaid properly? What are the payments that I did? Did I do it on Google Pay? Did I do it with ICICI Bank? Did I do it with SBI? All that is becoming, in our data world, we call it the thin file and the thick file. A thin file is something where my data about me is very limited. Thick is, you know everything about me. If I'm 54 years old, what all have I done at various phases, because it's all there in digital. Now today, there is no consent, and therefore when I am going and searching on a Google or I'm doing a ChatGPT query, this data implicitly, because I'm going and signing off one of those terms and conditions, I'm giving an implicit consent to everybody to say, go and use it as you want. I think that's where Praveen was making that point, organizations are banning because you are willy-nilly giving away the data. So as we speak, this entire concept of a consent manager, which is an account aggregator, is what is getting created. Reserve Bank of India has given licenses to 17 people. 10 of them are already operational, and the 7 are in the pipeline. And these are big names. PhonePe is one of the account aggregators. Perfios is another company which is very big in the financial services industry. And the reason I'm saying financial services is because data and financial services go very closely hand in hand. So this consent layer does not have a legal law binding it. So now, the account aggregator does not mean that you'll get only from banking. Even banking is, the financial services world as what is called as BFSI. Banking, financial services, and insurance. So banking is a good old banking. Financial services, mutual funds, and various other things. Insurance is non-life, life, health, etc., etc. Now imagine each one of them is regulated by somebody else. And the Indian legal system does not have one common rule which is covering all this. So this challenge, this will go through the churn under new law, now that we have the DPDP Act. On top of it, how will it get implemented? What are the rules? What are the operating guidelines? Will get built in and will come through. So we're getting there. So the right thing is, sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind.
Yeah, and that is why, because if there is a consent manager, how much of informed consent am I as an end user being able to give? How much control do I have over my
100%
own data? I don't. So in today's world, I am the product.
Yes,
right?
You are.
I am the product. So
you're getting a free service called ChatGPT for which you don't pay.
Yes, I don't pay. I don't use it. Thankfully, I don't. Even if I'm using Gmail, it's practically free. But I am the product. I'm giving all my information out there. A single app that I use, even if I use, think of health. Women's health in particular. That's one space where a lot of new companies have come in. So you have fertility trackers, period trackers. I am putting, for my convenience, I am putting every detail of my body onto that app, and I have signed off all consent, right? I've agreed to the terms of agreement. Now, is there something that students of a B school, students in management school, can they do something? That is where I think these are spaces. If we talk of individual privacy, if we talk of health, if we talk of, again, moving away from finance and banking, moving into issues that are more social or political. In these spaces, what are the opportunities for ethical innovation? I see that you have picked here.
No, I was just thinking on the comment that you made. I think it boils down to trade-offs in life, right? So if you take a step back from this, you want to use certain technology, there are pros and cons, right? There's a least common sort of or a median fee for a service that you will pay. Either you pay that or you share your data and be that product and benefit from that. So for example, why should, when you buy health insurance and if you're a fit individual with no, and you allow your health tracking parameters to be shared with the health insurance company, you might benefit from a lower premium. Or, they will just peg you at a certain age, take the whatever is the median for that age group, and then you pay that, which might be higher. So I think there is a trade-off involved where you need to take a decision and of course, the companies which judiciously use that data will eventually survive. And if there is, that
is where the doubt lies. How judicious will we be when we see profit? And the problem here is that, exactly, I understand the trade-off. I might think that, my data, I'm willing to give it away if I'm getting some services. It's not that precious. Not to me, it might not be to the company, etc. That is where I'm talking about informed consent rather than consent.
No, let's play this out. Okay?
Yeah.
Let's take the example of what you said, leave banking out.
Yes.
The fertility tracker or
Correct.
the menses tracker equivalent. You are doing it for your convenience. You downloaded the app.
Absolutely.
At the time of downloading the app, there are specific consents which are asked.
Correct.
Do you need location? I've said, this is a certain facility I'm going to use. Why do I need to give consent? I can be staying anywhere. Don't give it. And that the new law will make it a mandatory. The DPDP will ensure that you will not ask. In fact, why DPDP? DPDP in turn will go and mandate a Google and the Apple Store and the Play Store to say you will not certify any app which is unnecessarily asking for data which is not relevant for that proposition.
Exactly. Now the problem is that this question is not asked most of the time.
No, you need not ask it. For example, if I were in a
apps don't ask it. So on Apple, that is why Apple's biggest pitch is
it.
privacy.
No, Apple can
They say, do you want to, will you allow this app to track you? But on an Android phone, you are not. So I'm paying a premium already.
They are actually going one step ahead. They are saying this is not needed for the service. When I go and put up an app on the Google Store or on the App Store, I have to tell them, why am I doing this? Is it a PFM, personal financial manager, or a health tracker, or a DigiLocker equivalent? At that time, I have to say the purpose of this app is ABC.
Correct.
What are the consents required for this ABC? If I do not give it, they reserve the right to reject me upfront. And they are very strict about it. I'm saying it more as a practitioner today.
Right.
Every app that is there, when it comes up for a renewal, gets questioned because they are accountable today to the governments. And let me assure you, both the Googles and the Apples of the world are scared of governments.
Absolutely.
Kind of
Apple versus US government, CIA data.
It's huge.
That brings me to one very interesting point, and I will frame that question for you. Now, instead of the corporations, the government has my data.
So, I think there is somehow there is this inherent fear of government, but probably because it's a very visible kind of, what do you call, just it's everywhere, just feels like, government is a big bully and so on and so forth. My experience working in last over a decade that much before we as a country started talking about data and data privacy, there are aggregators who help you stitch information of every individual based on what you call digital exhaust. Every time we have an app, and I would just say if 1 out of 2 people understand that they're giving a consent, these are like standard, these are not like chota mota apps, right? These are from our healthcare provider, from our bank, and so on and so forth. And some of us are very liberal about, and some of us are not. Despite that, there are different ways to triage and get information and kind of stitch together information of, whatever, 1 billion people in India. And that is not where government is not a doing of the government, that's a doing of technology. Now the question is where government should come in and where they should really put systems in place, and we can learn something. In some cases, our government, our kind of society, our economy, we are kind of leapfrogging, and we are not learning from others, and we are doing it on our own. We are doing much better job. In some other cases, as far as data privacy, consent management, European law, but in US it's California law, which is actually making it difficult for businesses to collect unnecessary data, which is not required for core of the business, and make consent more explicit. I believe that consent management, voluntary sharing of information, and if you don't want to share that information, that it should stop businesses from collecting that information, and anyone else going and using, gathering information for non-intended purpose, I think is going to be heavily regulated. I think it's, in my view, there are laws around the corner. My worry is different. My worry is that typically in our society, we have leapfrogged as far as technology evolution is concerned. You know, digital technology, AI, mobile, so on and so forth. But the mindset of the people who build these rules, that has not evolved. It is still about, you know, there are businesses out there to defraud the country. There are people who are out there to evade taxes and so on and so forth. And that becomes like a, you know, it reduces the speed of innovation. So you have to really figure out that what's the right balance. Just because you're going to put regulations and more regulation doesn't necessarily mean that. So there has to be a little bit of, you know, more reasoned argument in what kind of regulation you want, so that you allow innovation to happen, new product and services to be developed, and you still protect the individual, you know, needs of protecting their information. That's the kind of the way I will interpret.
Right, correct. Anyone wants to before I? Yes, please.
Okay, I will also touch upon the, I would say, the law, the regulatory aspects in the edtech industry. So one is the, you know, our kind of video conference enablement side of thing. One good thing is that the entire legal proceedings are now, you know, accepted on video conference. And I think we ourselves have done a lot of, you know, hearings over video conference in the past, including the London court and, you know, international court justices also has happened over a platform. So I think that is one big move. Second, in the edtech, I mean, all of you would be aware that, you know, post-pandemic there was a, you know, decision taken by the government that online MBA would be now, you know, approved by UGC. So that is also a big step, I would say, in the edtech industry. And people, I mean, who need to take a chance, you know, working and would not like to drop their jobs and still continue with the MBA with a good institution, they can still do that under the government framework. So these are the two things. Third aspect, what I think all of my colleagues who were sharing, that data privacy, I mean, of course, since we are into edtech, we are heavily into digital marketing. So I think the digital marketing domain also, while we capture the data for, you know, audiences who are seeking to pursue the programs, inquiring about the programs, you know, definitely there are protocols which are regulatory in nature, which we definitely strictly follow. Not major changes there, but I think as it evolves, many a times, as we say, you know, as you were sharing that sometimes it is, I mean, proactive, sometimes it is reactive, you know, as we get to know, because every day something happening or the other. But I think more or less it is well streamlined. So I just wanted to add that in terms of the edtech perspective. Please.
Thank you. Legal frameworks notwithstanding, I was going into the matter of, you know, society and politics, etc. From that framework, from that understanding or that perspective, what would you say today are the biggest barriers to innovation?
You know, the ignorance or the lack of awareness of what this could do. Like you spoke about the fact that I don't even know what is the data that I'm sharing. But on the other hand, the socio-economy political framework that is typically there. I mean, who knew about the fact that a Facebook can be manipulated to position a certain, you know, candidature? Or today, if you notice all the political parties, the social media wing is one of the most powerful wings. And with AI and Gen AI coming in, it can go into very dangerous areas. When these are still at the top, in my mind, the ignorance of people about the harms that non-availability of a consent layer, a misuse of your data. I mean, we are still talking about somebody bothering you on the phone, etc. These are still something which is not going to hurt you. It's an irritant. It's not going to kill you. But imagine your data getting stolen, you getting impersonated, and somebody else is behaving you with being a digital twin and completely doing all your credit track record getting stolen. These are realities in the developed world. I think we need to find mechanisms. I don't think the lawmakers don't understand it. The law enforcers are not able to understand it. So these things need to be built as we go along. And honestly, we don't know an answer. So ignorance, fear is one of the big bottlenecks. And that's why I think people are happy to go with what is established and validated rather than get into the
something
realm
that you're apprehensive
Yeah.
about. So ignorance is one barrier, okay?
I would just say working for large organizations, and my experience working for 3 large global organizations, probably G was 100,000, Accenture I hear is now 700,000, and I left it was like 500,000, so they keep adding 100,000 every 2 years. IBM is like another 200,000. Just the hierarchy and bureaucracy, it kind of stifles innovation, in my view. And if it is, and it's not as if the size of the organization is the only driver. At times, the bigger size organization also have a culture where they are relatively more kind of federal in their decision making, so on and so forth. But one has to be mindful that if you're putting rules and systems and orders in place, are they encouraging innovation or they are discouraging innovation? Because there is a cultural contrast. In my 2 organizations, Accenture, despite being 700,000 people, is still probably, I would say, more agile in their decision making, a little bit more entrepreneurial. It can't be like everybody can make their own decision, but while in the other organization, I think it's like a deep, heavy tech, but still it's kind of averse to taking as many, decisions which will attract certain kind of risk. So, idea is to kind of make it less bureaucratic, and when you start taking risks, then you start innovating, because there is no way you can innovate without failing. And failure has to be, you can't take disproportionate risk, but as far as you're taking a calculated risk, and that is encouraged in the organization, I think that fosters innovation. That's in the context of large organization. Obviously, there are smaller, 2 people sitting in garage and building something new. I mean, those kind of innovations, nobody can stop, right? There's something which cannot be stopped. It will happen.
Right. Actually, so from ignorance, we have organizational structure. And when we had the introduction to the panel, the students were talking about Lattice as a structure. So I think that's the way to go. And you're right about innovation happening. We all know the story of Edison. Edison invented nothing. He just tried switching the light bulb on for more than 140 times. So Tesla did everything. There were other people, but we don't know of them. So we know of this guy who stuck it out, So erasing ignorance, changing organizational structures. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that, there is a role that large organizations need to play on to address, for example, ignorance, and sometimes it's a combination of role that we play in the society in terms of, or, like, for example, working with the regulator, increasing their awareness and understanding of what potentially, especially in technological change. For example, when cloud computing came in, every country wants data to be localized like us, but, it's now cloud hosted, and how do you replicate that? And you kind of dilute that whole benefit of hosting it on a centralized cloud. So you work with the regulator to find solutions to sometimes new technological
So removing
change,
ignorance both top down and
both
bottom
from
up.
awareness in the society, but also finding ways and means to address that, what the potential downside risks are, and work in building that partnership or a dialogue with the regulator, rather than seeing the regulator as some sitting in isolation.
Right. So more dialogue. Okay, we are getting somewhere. Please. We'll end with
Again, from my government experience, I can tell you one of the biggest hindrances of innovation is lack of collaboration. This resistance to change, I know it all. Why do I need to collaborate? So, what we've seen, again, I'll give you 2 examples. One, the project Insights that I spoke about, when the government departments actually stopped working in their silos, and they started sharing information, and they started collaborating to get to more sharper inputs, and kind of innovating to get to the right answer. They've seen a dramatic change in the way taxes are getting administered in this country, and the taxpayer experience is getting enhanced by the day. So it's about collaboration, and therefore collaboration leading to innovation. again, coming closer home, EY, when we started this whole journey on, technology and innovation, we were all, we have different specialities working with Ernst Young. There's audit, there's internal audit, there's tax, there's, business consulting, and each one had their own nuances. Every business is very different, and there is no overlap, so to say, and that's how blissfully ignorantly we thought we did not have anything to do with each other. We were just, different parts of the same game, but not the puzzle. What we realized is when we collaborated differently, we were able to stitch solutions for clients which were in unimaginable ways. And therefore, I keep saying this, collaboration leads to innovation.
Collaboration, and also, I guess, your point about breaking hierarchies, because that's how collaboration can be further entrenched.
I have one more point.
Yes.
Sorry, before.
Yes,
The culture. See, in India, whether it education or whether it is business, we always reward success. And success becomes more predictable if I don't change too much. If
It also plateaus after a point.
Yeah,
right?
but at least for the person, whether it's a culture, large organizations, why has bureaucracy taken shape? Because they want predictability. So I think that anybody, and that's why all these memes which go around, trying to be an innovator within a large corporate is always very painful. Up to until the culture itself is different. You're born that way, you're able to think very differently. And I think we are only perpetuating it. I think one way of doing it is, there is no external stimuli which is forcing us to change. Japan had World War II, which completely killed them, and necessity became the mother of invention or innovation in their case, and they built it really very, now they are plateaued. What is it that we can do within our education system, wherein we actually encourage people to fail? And now, I think India is in a fantastic place. A number of private equity guys who are willing to do startup funding, startup investment is so huge that they are very happy to say that only 2 in 10 out of succeed, and that will take care of that. So I think the culture is changing, but how does it cut across right at the grassroots levels? The government has been a fantastic example. Aadhaar, when 2 successive different governments, they managed to pull it out, Project Insight, the entire GSTN framework. I think innovation has happened once somebody decides that culturally we have to make it happen, and failures will not be looked down upon, but actually encouraged.
Shifts in culture.
The entire Startup India.
Yeah. But I also believe that this is kind of relative comparison between different countries.
Yeah.
I think at some point of time, government's role has to come down. Governments kind of, if you look at the proportion in the society, right, what role corporates play, what role government plays, what role civil society plays. I think over a period of time, as we become larger, more confident country, more capable country, I think it's very important that businesses are able to do things, and they are able to innovate, and people don't look up to government for everything. I think it's important to work in a framework. Regulation is important, but that kind of balance has to change for us to really start becoming. People say why we don't create new products in India. Right, compared to, say, if you go to California, people say whether most of the recent, in fact, they haven't come even from Europe. They have come from the western part. They have come from US. And what really stifles that kind of a growth or that kind of a mindset, I think is a study, but I believe that the role of the government has to come down, and the role of other aspects of our country economy has to be bigger for us to innovate faster, better, and be more effective. In fact, our government has innovated a lot more, which is good. But then I think it's the other part of the society has to do more.
Right. So shifts in culture, addressing ignorance, organizational structure, collaboration, and money power.
There's a role for ecosystems as
ecosystems, yeah. And all of these things that you have said, all these words and all these ideas, what I find kind of a common thread going there is perhaps the need to misbehave a bit, the need to speak truth to power. Because if you're talking of ignorance, for example, how do you go and think of dissemination in various spaces, various sectors, whether it's about education or health or finance, giving information to people. That's trying to bridge ignorance. But it also means going out there and talking truth to power. That can be challenging. If you're talking of collaboration, hierarchies, if you come to recruit students, would you encourage, would you foster a culture in your organization where they can ask you a question without fear? Yeah. So, yeah, of course. We encourage, we say that, you know, in our classrooms, we encourage as much questioning. We are very Socratic in our methodology, I think. So, questioning is important, etc. But somehow, is that questioning stopping within the four walls of the classroom? Because you go out on the street and you protest against something, or you talk back to your boss, or something or the other. Is there, when we are talking of a culture, is there a culture of fear in the industry and in society which we need to address?
I think there's a very fine line between having this culture of questioning and activism. I'll leave it at that, right? So.
No, I would like to expand on that.
I would also want to expand on it. Why leave
a
it
management
at that?
trainee who comes into my college.
Right.
I mean, we all, you know, we read somewhere the person who just passed out of college is good enough to be a CEO because he has learned it all afresh and come. But the reality is very different.
Yeah.
The attitude of a millennial worker today about work-life balance, concepts, etc., so outdated. It doesn't fit in. So if there is a genuine question, like the way we are debating here, how should we, you know, look at data privacy? What are the various things? I mean, where you are coming in as a consumer, you're able to identify with the pains of this entire privacy related. I'm just using that example. And pushing the system to say, what are we doing? That ethical norm is, that will be always be respected, at least in a lot of the organizations it's welcome, because you're bringing in a very fresh perspective. Somebody like me who has spent 30, 35 years in the industry might not be able to identify with. And that we find in a lot of bright people who are coming and bringing out their insights and challenging. But you, at the same time, whether you call it an activism or whether you call it saying, no, I want to have my space, I want to have the best of everything, I don't know how that world is going to. The same guy, when he goes to a fintech, will do whatever is needed. So
Intelligent, conscious questioning.
Always welcome. And if the organizer is not doing it,
good to know that. I mean, I think the
for
students, they're happy to know that.
They should also remember the other thing.
Yeah, the other side as well. To sort of respond to you, I feel that increasingly, you know, this negative association with the word activism is kind of problematic, in the sense that without activism, our country wouldn't be independent. Without activism, black people would still be slaves. Without activism, women would still not have votes. So I guess activism has done quite a bit for
if you had to have the same debate on the
innovation.
In any
activism has really innovated society.
So I think my comment on activism was more in the context of going and working in a corporate, okay, which has certain objective. It has and then there is and I think Madhi made a great point, which is young business professionals coming out of college, and you know, when they're in classroom, I mean, with due respect, simulation makes us believe that, you know, we are running a large company, we can take big decisions, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
I used to think like that.
Especially management's classroom.
Yeah, always, right? Which is very good, actually. That's how it should be. But idea is that when you come in, if you're questioning strategy without understanding strategy of the firm, without understanding the basics, that is what I call, you know, things which are like out of place. Ideas to understand the environment. If there are challenges, I think there's more openness now in corporates to kind of handle different viewpoints and use that as an advantage rather than seen as a threat.
Absolutely, because you spoke of organizational hierarchy and to break down those hierarchies, it's important. And I understand this, you know, with my experience in a management classroom. When the students go to the corporate, I don't know what they do, but here they know quite a bit about, you know, I don't know how much of it's simulation, how much of it is Anyway, I mean, simulation theory is also there, that everything indeed is a simulation, who knows. But that's why I would say that, perhaps from the corporate, to have this notion of activism bad, questioning bad, that shouldn't be there. That was just my point in the sense.
Again, I will say questioning and activism, I'm differentiating.
Differentiating, I'm also
critical
doing
argument,
that, yeah.
Questioning a particular approach to do things.
Right.
In fact, that's welcome because that strengthens decision making.
Exactly. That also strengthens organizations, it strengthens societies, because, if we had not said, within industries, if we had not said that 8 hours for work, 8 hours for sleep, and 8 hours for what I will, we would have been in very exploitative structures. So questioning, and millennials, Generation Z, you might have heard of something called quiet quitting. Now Gen Z, I don't know how many Gen Z students are here, Gen Z is talking about loud quitting. So you guys have your work cut out. I mean, all the best to you. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that to Sanjay's point, that constructive criticism is good. And activism, to the point that he was making, I think is also about knowing when to stop. Like, okay, if you're if you're sort of having trying to be independent, and once you're independent, it's done. Now we move on to the next thing rather than continuing to sort of find the next sort of agenda to stay in
but that's also the thing, that's also the notion of progress. And progress is, innovation perhaps is all about progress. When Edison is doing what he's doing with the bulb 140 times, that's what I guess one would want to do with the country, that once it's independent doesn't mean that it's over. You always have scope for improvement, and that is where the whole questioning thing comes.
What I would say is that, at least in Barclays, there's a lot of focus on what we call as speak up. And a lot of times when you, join any organization in the first 30 days, we believe that you observe things and you see things which potentially should change. Because after a certain point, you become part of that organization's fabric, and you kind of accept things as they are.
Absolutely, you
so
get used to.
We encourage people to actually call out, like, look, this process needs to change, this thing, and therefore that is something that we actually proud ourselves. They're actually inviting people to speak up and bringing those new ideas to table.
And that brings progress, that brings profit also, because progress is kind of linked with profit in many ways. So again, just to conclude, what are the barriers to innovation? The barriers are ignorance, there's hierarchy, there's lack of knowledge systems, which we all want to break in certain way. We were talking of Barclays. I remember Google's story. Google had a system called 20% time. Every employee in Google, 20% of company time, they could just sit and work on their pet project. What are the products that came out of that? Gmail came out of that. YouTube came out of that. So, and they were the biggest profit bringers for the company. So the more we encourage people to speak up, voice their opinions, have discussions. I think discussions are important for any kind of progress or innovation. I'm looking at the moderators again. These are the real people sitting.
I just want to add
yes,
something
please,
here.
please.
So,
closing statement from you.
Just complementing, with all the discussions that we have, that today workplace is a very collaborative atmosphere. So, we had a time, I mean, I should not mention my company's name, but, it was Reliance Communications, where things were, absolutely, process-driven, top-down, there was no opportunity of collaboration as such. So, but today, once we got into the startup model, we thought that, bringing everybody on table, even for a small decision making, bringing your stakeholders on table, discussing with them, and then, adopting the right, approach. Possibly I may be wrong. My colleague might be, having a very good constructive approach. So I think there also that the part of criticism also come in. So possibly, you end up doing a wrong thing. Your colleague who is a collaborative colleague, he comes and tells you that I'm critic about this, resultant, what has happened. Possibly this could have been done better. So that is what you called as constructive criticism. And that is very much encouraged. Today, I think, there is no top-down approach. It's an open organization, collaborative, and people do their way. Gone are those days where you have a timing barrier, going back home, the legacy of, of course, the work-life balance has to be there. But nowadays, you need not have to command your employees. They know how it is to be taken. They will take it.
Absolutely. So, good concluding comment. I think I have just 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get to the questions part. To conclude, I just was remembering a story of a soldier. The soldier was very tired and hungry, and the soldier was traveling through Russian winters, dreadful, violent almost. And the soldier is walking through a village, and there is, he's hungry and thirsty, knocks on the door, and it's wartime, and says, "Can I have some food?" Villagers are refusing food. No one is going to give food to the soldier at this point. So what does he do? He sits down in the town square, takes a big pot, puts some water, and puts a stone inside it. Okay. Now what happens is a villager comes by and says, "What are you making? What is it?" He says, "I'm making stone soup." Stone soup is something magical. It will give me strength and great power. You are free to partake of the stone soup, but it's more palatable if you add something to it. So this fellow rushes to his house, gets some carrots, puts it in the water, and they are waiting. Then some other person comes in and says, "What are you guys doing?" Like, "We are making stone soup. It's like a magic broth. It's really good for strengthening you. It's really good for the winters. You could have the stone soup. If you want it to be a little better, you can add something if you want." So he brings some potatoes and puts it there. And gradually what happens is the whole village, someone brings meat, someone brings celery, someone some onions. And at the end of it, what happens is that there is a big, nice pot with a really healthy, brothy soup, and the soldier takes out the stone and throws it away, obviously. When I think of innovation and what we have been discussing so far, perhaps innovation is that stone. You start by saying something is there, leashed, unleashed, we don't care, it's there. And you encourage people, you sort of have to convince people, persuade them to come by and add their bit. So the government may add its carrots, the corporate may add its potatoes, the students may add their celery and meat. What we have perhaps at the end, hopefully, and I want to end on a hopeful note rather than a non-hopeful one, perhaps that what we have is a big pot of something that is useful to us, that will sustain us, and that will help us grow. So with that, I kind of end, and the students.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So before we start the Q&A, I, on behalf of the MBAEx and IIM Calcutta, would sincerely like to thank Mr. Praveen for having taken out the time to visit us and add immense value to Lattice 2023. We are honored, sir.
So Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI have come together to form a body that will regulate AI development before the government regulation steps in. So as business leaders whose disruption and innovation would be dependent on AI, what is your opinion on being regulated on this field by for-profit companies? And if you feel like what should be the right way to regulate AI in the near future?
I'll just take that one. So I don't think it's either or. It's very good that large tech firms are kind of putting their might, because their businesses are going to be dependent on how they make this new technology work for society positively. So I think it's in their interest that they regulate themselves as an industry. But that doesn't mean that the regulation work can be outsourced to individual companies. That's kind of my sense. There is always a role that the government has to play. And the big techs coming together and doing that. In fact, if I remember, 9 out of 10 big techs were meeting US government and proposing themselves. I think that's gonna aid the process of regulation, and because reality is that they themselves are also very fearful. It's not as if it's, one of them, winner takes it all, right? OpenAI has developed it, so it's all the way for OpenAI. In fact, it's so federated. Google came out with the, I think in their paper with their 8 different Google research engineers, Google brain engineers, they came out with this paper which is attention is all you need. That was a foundation for Gen AI and Chat GPT and all that. So they know that this is, one does it, second one innovates faster, builds a chatbot and experience in front of it. Everybody likes it. Third one goes and builds something else. So it's like it's a game that all of them are also very fearful of and what it can do. So a dual approach of industry doing their own regulation and government complementing on top of that, I think is the way to go.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my question is about if we have to bring an innovative product to the market, so if my product is better on a social or ethical side, but it's higher on the cost side. So in a cost-conscious country like ours, how do you market such an innovative product which has a higher cost but better on the social or ethical side?
You call it a niche product and find out the segment to whom is willing to offer. A fantastic example of OpenAI. When ChatGPT, the model was developed, they did not try to develop it for a specific industry. They tried to burn the ocean by taking all data and putting it up. Now they are stuck in a model. I'm not talking the ethical and the social angle, but they are in an unviable position because if they want to monetize it, the kind of charges that corporates will have to pay or retailers, the retail customer will have to pay is so huge that it is unjustifiable. So what is it that the industry is doing? Industry is picking up the respective context, banking, health. Each one of them is building their own railroad and building around it. So, but the question that you spoke about is ethicality and social. Ideally, it shouldn't be costing much because you'll have to seriously think about whether a positioning is there for that kind of a product or not. Because it's neither premium or up till you genuinely bring out a Porsche or something, people are willing to pay through the nose or build an era around it. But it's a good question, but very hypothetical.
So my question is a bit from the human resource management perspective when it comes to innovation. So in this fast-moving world, especially in the corporate worlds, the managers or executives, they are kind of very hard-pressed in, delivering the outputs. So in this kind of, high-pressure environment, at times it so happens that mind loses the ability to think and innovate. And ultimately the company will be at loss by, pushing hard their employees, to get those outcomes delivered. So as leaders, how do you balance that? Maybe on the, apparently you might be getting the results out, but on the hidden side, maybe you will losing out on the innovation part of the employees.
I think there are ways in which, we can learn from what some of the innovative firms have done. What they typically do is that they will set up a research unit or they will have, they will change the KRAs or the objectives of some of their, management or mid-tier managers in a way that puts a premium on innovation because it's not all the time that when you do performance management or evaluation, and I'm talking more in the HR context, right? So that you say what your sales revenue or your net margin are the only 3 dimensions, right? There are dimensions around have you done, certain kind of research, whether you have spoken in industry bodies, whether you have gone ahead and contributed to a certain kind of a product development, which may not have a immediate term financial benefit. And some of the firms have actually instituted that as part of their, kind of evaluation process. How much that really drives innovation and how much people are able to balance their day-to-day task versus what's going to be good for the firm in the long run. is kind of differs based on organization to organization. Some do it very well, some are kind of still grappling with it.
Good evening, panelists. I have a very simple and a question which is at a very basic and fundamental level. If we take technology, data, industry oblique business and innovation as 4 different entities, the technology has grown to a proportion we just discussed to AI, ML, and data from simple ledgers, it has now moved to data and big data. And when data becomes unmanageable beyond basic human intelligence or computing power, then you start getting into the machines to learn the data and do your job. So I was trying to find interlinkages between these 4 entities, business, industry, technology, data, and innovation. So what drives innovations? Is it a still simple business problem which is driving the innovations? Or it is the technology and the data which has become too overarching and big, and from there the problems are coming out, and from there where the innovation is being driven? This is what I wanted to ask.
It's a very good question. It's very complicated, but how was Google formed? I mean, if you have to, whatever folklore that you have to hear, they're trying to solve a very basic problem of trying to search for information around the globe. I don't know whether both the founders had this vision, I will run advertisement on top of it and make money. At least my understanding is it's not that way. You start with a purpose. Forget about these 4 pillars. Let's take our India story. The governments wanted to find a way of preventing leakage of the subsidy which is going to the poor, so that the taxpayers' money gets redistributed in the most ideal way. Because there was a huge pipe, middlemen taking away the money. You know how the ration card systems, I think a lot of you don't even know how the ration card system used to work, but that's a kind of pilferage which used to happen. So in my mind, there is always a purpose for which a business or a government or an entity or an individual starts with. That purpose could be to solve a problem, the purpose could be to build a capability, or to genuinely solve some major, take advantage of an opportunity or whatever. Then tech plays a role of an enabler. Tech is the thing which drives an efficiency driver in my mind. I mean, it's my opinion. Data is an outcome out of that, which makes it a sustainable cycle. If you take Amazon as an example, Amazon started with books, which was a very simple solution to say, I don't need to open thousands of shops. Let me put it in a server. Let people discover it. But as he went along, he found a mechanism of not just selling books, but of selling anything that can be delivered. So all those various components got built in. To ensure that you wanted to scale up, you brought in technology. Round 1. Round 2, this particular technology resulted in a lot of data exhaust, which is Madhi wanted to buy XYZ, Sanjay wanted to buy ABC, you wanted to buy something 3. Somewhere in the data engine, it was picking it up and it was categorizing these various peoples into different categories. This is that in a way I became a product and I was paying for it. These models started, so from tech, you got into data. You started with the business, selling books, used technology because it is a different operating model. You went and did, the data started making it better. In fact, there is a beautiful paper it's called the data flywheel. It makes it a sustainable model as you go along. And what are the last 4th pillar in your mind? Innovation. This entire cycle is innovation. Every time you're doing it, I think Nandita madam put it very nicely. You have a purpose and you don't stop anywhere. You're only as good as the next change that is in the anvil. So how do you keep making it better and better? And that's where I think people's ability to contribute, an outside-in perspective, internal understanding, organization culture makes a big deal. So don't think of which is the driver. The driver is always the purpose. Whether you sent a DBT, you sold a book, or you created a unique engine. Look for that and solve those kind of case studies in the campus rather than...
Good evening. Thanks panel for the amazing discussion. My question is about innovation management and understanding when to get into a particular technology. Because there are instances wherein you know that the use cases are very limited for a particular technology, but then you know that you'll bleed a lot of money. But then if you don't jump the bus, you're going to miss the bus. So how do you, like from your own experiences, identify those indicators on when to jump the bus and rather than miss the bus?
Before Sanjay answers, if you find the answer, come and tell me.
I just always think of this, when you ask that question, blockchain comes to my mind, which is like a technology which is, you know that it has a lot of promise, and you're trying to find use cases, and you're not getting enough, but you know that whether you really need to go out that far, that deep. I think I would agree with Madhi that if you can glean that, then you're gonna hit a pot of gold, because a lot of people make those choices with very limited information. Because when everyone else has figured out, then it's kind of word is out, it's a crowded place, so on and so forth. So to be able to relate a particular technology or particular action, innovation action, I wouldn't say innovation action, I've just limited to technology, how far it is going to disrupt a business model, to be able to glean like that, those are 10% people in businesses, and that's where the benefits accrue exponentially.
I'll give you a story. I used to work in ICICI Bank for almost 2 decades. In 2016, blockchain was hot, like the way we are talking ChatGPT today. Blockchain used to be the hot kid on the block. So yours truly went and captured some 7-8 banks together. So I was a chief technology and digital officer there. So I caught my counterparts and said, come over for a lunch. And then we created a company called IBIC, India Blockchain. I've forgotten even the other 2 words, but it was the last one, was a company. All of them contributed 8% equity. We put in cash into the company is still there. We convinced Nandan Nilekani to say blockchain is a big story, so please join us. So Infosys, virtually at a very throwaway price, built a technology on top of this blockchain infrastructure, which was the Ethereum model. And we also had a problem to solve, which was trade. Trade is a very broken journey in banking. The entire supply chain model, that is, when you're buying something, if you're an Hindustan Lever, then you're effectively manufacturing something, giving it to the wholesale agent, the CFA, wholesaler, distributor. So this entire chain needs to happen. Now what facilitates the chain is money. So you have to capture money flow. And money doesn't alone make it happen. You need to have an invoice. You need to have a truck which is delivering it. So fantastic use case for blockchain. Because what does blockchain say? Immutable data cannot be changed, and evidences both information and money can flow together. Short of Bitcoin, we have digital money. Yeah? So this entire story built in, fantastic case study on paper, some 8 banks, including SBI, PNB, everybody put money in it. It's still waiting to take off. But yeah, we did not go and spend too much money like an OpenAI or whatever. The platform is available. What are the competitive models? How many of you heard of something called Threads? Yeah, Threads is a government-driven entity which facilitates invoice financing. Now, technically, this is a fantastic use case. We found a CEO only last year. So hopefully the CEO will bring in innovation, drive a purpose, and make it happen. So these kind of questions that's why in a very jocular manner, I said, somebody has to take this punt. Somebody has to take a leap of faith and say whether it happens or not. Most of the tech will fail, but you will land up with 2 or 3 which will take you out of the world.
Or even in case of blockchain, the real use case is so disruptive, because that's about replacing currencies. And that governments are not going to let happen. So there is this blockchain has that potential, but then other use cases may not be, they're not enough as of now.
How many of you invested in Bitcoin? You still have the money with you? See, yeah, hope. But see, when there is nothing underlying, how can you go and invest in it? Mining is a different story, but even then, the underlying story, money going out of India, Raghuram Rajan would have lost his sleep when it started. Money going India just out of thin air, here, half the world we are fighting for dollars to come in. But ye paise वैसे ही जा रहा है. I don't know, some fintech made money.
Some people made a lot of money, that's the thing. That is the whole, the last question, and
thank you to the panelists. So I have a question, being a sociologist, not coming from the MBA, so I have this question, when you say ignorance, risk, culture, collaboration, etc. as a barrier to innovation, so can we say the idea of change itself becomes a barrier? Because when I take the idea of Bourdieu and say that the internet is structured, in Indian context, itself becomes an issue. And when you say bringing the innovation idea here, so for the firms, it's very difficult to break this internalized structure, which is in itself is the idea to break. So how the firms plan to break this and unleash the innovation over here in the structure when the idea of change itself is such a on the nuanced question?
Spoken like a true sociologist, okay? I'll answer it in two parts. One is the individual. When am I willing to accept change? I'm used in a particular way. If the benefit that I'm going to get out of this is much greater than the effort that I'm going to put, classic physics, I will accept it. So, and the same thing applies for an organization. How many of you have heard of this company called Spotify? Not as users, how the organization functions. Gana to sab sunte ho. One is the network structure of the content creation, but the way they organize themselves is very unique. They do not have the hierarchical structure which is typically what I think Sanjay spoke about, or what is typically. They follow this squad/agile model wherein people come together to solve a problem. That is what facilitates change. If you want to create an ecosystem, for me, Apple's creation was not the phone. Apple's creation was the ecosystem that he created, which was the marketplace of allowing people to create content for you free and our man making toll money. You know, so effectively, you're making, so Spotify happened like that. I mean, you're able to get hold of songs which are getting created. How do you render it so that your user experience is better? Organization changes because it's got a purpose. Human being changes because suddenly he doesn't have to carry a tape or a Walkman, but he is able to download whatever he wants, whenever he wants, as per his module. So I think this is how change happens. In a much more basic, go and ask that farmer who gets his remittance every month into his bank account. He will not understand what is Aadhaar, what is going behind it. But uska jab paisa aata hai na, wo jaake usi government official ko पूछेगा मेरा पैसा क्यों नहीं आया. So I think if the purpose is strong and if the efforts are going to be accretive, incremental, social change will happen.
All right, good note to end it in. I would just wait. I know you are what you are waiting for. Just 2 minutes. They have plans to party hard later on. So it's we are the bottleneck. So everyone wants to. But just to conclude, I would want to thank the panel. Mr. Naveen, thank you for bringing your insights from diverse fields, consultancy and legal insights. Thank you very much. Mr. Ojha, your expertise in AI and how you sort of brought very complex concepts to an audience who is, for me particularly, I would say, and many of us here, we don't understand the technology of it, perhaps, you know, but you articulated it and you explained things to us very patiently. Mr. Mani, Joka is home, so we are glad to welcome you back. And I really enjoyed your insights. It was absolutely wonderful. And of course, Mr. Pattanayak, your, before I say you're like, yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. So we are yes. We're very happy to have you back home in Joka. And thank you for bringing the perspectives of EdTech, media, VC. I hear that Zoom has asked its employees to come back to office.
So what, in fact, in the rush of banking and finance, I mean, we were just a minority here. What I wanted to say, I mean, in fact, I was wanting to add that, I think our communication strategy classes again comes back into the play. The embracing of technology by the professors need to be intensified, and of course the kind of feedback that we keep on getting, Professor Pragya knows what it is all about, and always there are few miscreants who do it, and again the discussion of that, interference, and what did we say? I think we said, activism, that activism comes into play. But I think all the activism melts down as they come to the campus and then get onto these certificates. And I think we get all glorifying stories. So I think, with the ending note, I would say that I would request all our faculties and professors to be more, I would say, tech-friendly. Conventional classes will go on, but embrace EdTech, because that is how we are going to survive as well.
Point taken. And finally, I would also like to thank the Lattice team, the students who have worked very hard to put all of this together. Big round of applause for you, and thank you very much. And finally, a big thank you to Professor Rath, MBAEx chairperson, for spearheading all of this. All right, thank you very much, and for being a patient audience. Now you can do what you have been wanting to do. Oh,
I have a little bit more work to do, ma'am. And you're all most welcome to come tonight as well, sir. No bottlenecks there. You can have the full experience of the college today.
Last time I came 5 years back, my entire batch were looking like oldies. These guys are all having, the hosts were having more fun than all of us. Then we decided.
I mean, ma'am has already thanked everybody. Just wanted to also request everyone to please have a round of applause for the MBAEx office, wherein we have Mrs. Anandita, Mrs. Sangamitra, Mr. Rakesh, Mr. Sudeep, Mr. Sunay, and our very own Babuda. So a great thank you to you. Also, as tradition goes, we have you here, sir, but we also have some alums who've taken out time and have come. So I would really like to thank them as well. That is Chandan. If you could just raise your hand so that we recognize you. Srijita, Sharat, Shaunak, and Saptaparni. Thank you so much for coming here and being with us today. Finally, I'd request ma'am, if you could come, and along with the Lattice team, we wish them, we gave a round of applause for them, but I'd really like to take their names. That's Laksh, Pradyot, Anirudh, Akshat, and Mayank. They've really put in the hard work, and thank you so much. Without you, this event wouldn't have been how it has been.